The TDL3 gang prefers segregating the malware drop from their command and control infrastructure. So I showed one example of a Zeus operator that had all the components on the same server. TDL3 gang tends not to do that. So the malware drop sites, they prefer to use domains with words such as video, film, and movies, much tied to the social engineering aspect of the malware agent. The command and control servers, meanwhile, they tend to like the word art or arts inside the domains that they're registering and actually taking control of. The rootkit, so TDL rootkit is also a loader, so it can download many more variants of other people's malware. So it infects the buildable botnets of 400, 800,000 machines, and they install other people's bot agents and other people's malware on those machines for a fee. So to give you an example of command and control servers, interesting enough, so this is one command and control server on the IP address 6666, and as you'll see, that is a command and control server sitting inside the US Department of Defense. They have multiple domain names and command and control channels that are pointing into there. So these circle ones here, you'll see the theme of art and arts actually appearing in this. Now, when you have a look at the type of structure, so one of the domain names there, the fineartstalk.com, you start seeing where the IP address is pointing to, where the A records are, and where the name servers are. The A record is obviously pointing to where the web server is, where the command and control services are running, but the name servers are really going to provide the biggest fingerprint for their infrastructure. And so here we see the name servers pointing through to effectively servers that are hosted inside Optical Jungle and the Planet. And when I have a closer look at that, then you have a look at another domain here that being used. So this malwarehomearts.com, a different one, a different domain, and we see recycling of the name server infrastructure. And this particular one, also ties back to the same DoD exploited server. So in general, the TLD3 gang focuses on exploitation of servers through multiple methods, but mostly SQL injection, and point those at their DNS, at their state of authority DNS. Typically, they focus on the spam and drive-by downloads and client exploits, where what they're trying to do is building big botnets, and where they sell access to those botnets to other operators. So what about the modular side, modular botnet command and control? So, frankly, the AV industry is pretty screwed up on this, I think. Zeus, one of the names that you'll hear, also goes by Zbot, PRG, Wins Program, also it's WinSpoem, Gorhax, and Neba. No one really agrees what the name is, but Zeus seems to be one that I tend to use the most. And it's also labeled as a Trojan horse, and that steals banking information. That hasn't been true for several years. If it only stole banking credentials, that would be great. It does a lot more than that. So, botnets that are based on the malware, agents tend to guarantee a level of confusion. Basically, everything that you see today from the malware perspective in the botnets are multi-use Trojans, multi-function malware. So looking at something like Zeus, screenshot one here is actually the management console. So this is running on the compromised web server. It's providing uptime and allows me to remotely manage my botnet. Point number two here is showing how I want to get all the credentials back from the victim machines. And this bottom one here is the Zeus builder. So this is the agent that you would run on your machine to generate polymorphic malware variants of Zeus and guarantee that it has no AV detection before you release and infect machines with it. The types of interface you have here, so this is one particular botnet that is focused on password stealing for email accounts, and this is the sniffer view, so it's actually gathering all these data in real time. And we have another screenshot here of the bots that aren't doing anything, so I can now start looking at which ones aren't finished their jobs, finished their tasks, and I can now allocate other tools and other responsibilities to these machines. So when it comes to these types of botnet services, the DIY construction kits for the malware, basically this is easy stuff, easy to install, easy to get acquired. For anyone in this room to be able to build their own botnet and use these types of kits, you need two skills. The first skill is to know how to use Google, and the second skill is to know how to install software on your own machine. If you can master both of those, you are now more than qualified to start building a botnet. Okay. So most compromised environments, really, sort of a lot of the low-hanging fruits type of vulnerabilities that are being exploited. Now, there are other sort of things. If I look at the Zeus file structure, so when you install the command and control services on the server, installed in 3 different folders, there's a couple of files in the root directory, the control panel, and a particular script for receiving data, so the receiver from the bots, has a PHP backend. Okay. Now, interesting enough, it also has a file, geobase.txt, which is probably and only used for GeoIP. It's actually the largest file, so it's 1.5 meg compressed, and this is purely for the way that you manage and allocate activities to your botnet based on GeoIP data. And of course, default configuration files. Snapshot of the system directory, so it installs quite a few different files. Key files really being the configuration file for what the botnet is going to be doing. The global PHP, so the attributes, which also includes the encryption that you're going to be using between the agent. So what instead of using the SSH that maybe using the SSL on the web server, you effectively encodes and encrypts the data at rest before you actually send it up. Okay. HD access for cutting off access and prying views, and for the Jabber Zeus gang, the Jabber class, which is for the Jabber configuration. Now, configuration files are easy to understand, easy to edit. The botnet parameters, so here we're seeing all the different functions that can be sent and communicated to a Zeus agent of how to receive data, send data, and all that. So utility bots in action. This is the command language. The Jabber Zeus gang is interesting, so they prefer to do all their command and control over Jabber. And a lot of people tend not to know what Jabber is, but as soon as you mention that Cisco uses it a lot, people go, okay, it might be important. If you then talk about the fact that it's used as a core component of WebEx, and corporate environments that use WebEx now have this running on their machines, then it tends to wake up a few people. Okay. So what happens here is that the Jabber component is actually used for the command and control language. Something a little bit about the RC4 encryption. So if you want to check their coding style, you'll actually see a couple of bugs in there. They have a themes directory, so a lot of the content is also allows for hosting of phishing sites, so you can have themes for the phishing attacks. Now, interesting one that sort of cropped up this year is SpyEye. So this is a competitor to Zeus. One of the key functions that they have, or interesting functions, is effectively this thing I've underlined here, the kill Zeus. So if you're running SpyEye and all the management console, and you create the malware and it infects the machine that's already infected with Zeus, it will automatically uninstall and delete Zeus off that machine. Okay. Now the interfaces there, here we see in the top left, the classic interface for SpyEye, and here we see a couple of plugins for it. It's the Bank of America credential grabber, and the certificate grabber. So being able to steal the VPN certificates of all the victim machines and pulling them back. And then we have, of course, if you don't like that style and you want to use your own icons, you can have your own themed sets. Types of stats, so the actual management console will actually provide stats on the victims as well. So what percentages are, IE, operating systems, and user type permissions. The management is also very sophisticated, so here we see all the different victim machines, what they've been tasked with, how they're performing against the tasks, and what the results have actually been, and be able to stop those activities at any one point in time. Also has a full AJAX interface for querying the data that's been extracted and stolen from those victim machines. So what are the repercussions of this? And I think a couple of things. So when it comes to Zeus, there are sites like Zeus Tracker. So when these machines, when those web servers are compromised, they eventually do get noticed, especially when the malware gets intercepted, and AV vendors automatically analyze these things, track back who the command and control server exists at, upload those details to something like Zeus Watcher. Zeus Tracker means that you'll appear on these lists. Now the important part though is that once you appear on these lists, is that while this one here is, is roughly live, once you appear on the list, you get automatically absorbed into other people's blacklists, and it may be a lot tougher. And to give you another example, one here is the malware domain blacklist, or block list. And basically this is one way. Once you appear on this, there is no way of removing yourself on this. And there are many, many, many vendors or blacklist vendors that use this as a source of blacklisting information. So it means once you appear on there, you'll be permanently on someone's blacklist. Okay. So if your business is to do business on the internet from your web server and you get compromised and you appear on this type of list, you will lose customers. Now another area is really takedown, teardown, sinkholing. So if the domain owner can't actually be contacted, then frankly guys like me, and if you read the news today, Microsoft lawyers as well, can actually take ownership of your domain. Okay. And with that, they can modify the DNS settings for redirection. So taking your DNS, your domain name, pointing at something that we control to make sure that no one else is receiving any command and controls. What that does mean, though, is that if you happen to be a small business owner, have a domain doing business, and you get compromised and you're on vacation for a few days, a few weeks, and all that, and you haven't responded and cleaned up, you may be taken over, and you will lose your domains. Okay. And other cases of, frankly, if we see some domains that aren't being cleaned up and there's a lot of infections, we'll contact the ISP or the hosting provider, and they will either try to clean up, delete, or shut down your entire website until it's fixed. So wrapping up, it's like the final inspection of what we've been talking about. There is a lot of targeting of the web application servers themselves. So there's an entire ecosystem dependent upon hacking the web servers. Now, traditionally, we talk about hacking web servers more for, grins, giggles, and just being, a general pain in the ass. But now, there's a whole monetization system for using these in botnet command and control. They are the backbone of many of the largest botnets around today. Okay, for the reasons of stability, size, scale. Okay, they're also important for evasion of protection technologies because if any of these sites, popular sites, get compromised, they will automatically be on many of the whitelists, particularly the whitelists of automatic analysis engines. Tools and technologies that are designed to take malware or take URL content and then say, well, actually, it's still a good site, so ignore whatever errors they're throwing up that is potentially malicious. Okay. They also tend to be the lowest hanging fruit for compromise. So, all those tools where you take a particular vulnerability, chuck it into Google or Google Dorking. Frankly, if you're high on the page rank, you're going to be hit first, the most common. And so what you find is that the biggest sites are the lowest hanging fruit for compromise. So other things, the DIY construction kits, the botnet kits, and the exploit kits, they're really easy to acquire, there's plentiful, and frankly, they only need to be good enough. And actually, most of them are more than good enough. These guys that write these things could easily set up their own businesses, providing these as commercial tools to most everyone here in this room. Okay. The protection strategies are obvious: patch, verify, and continuous alerting. But frankly, if you're not patching those vulnerabilities, particularly your PHP vulnerabilities, in real time, then you're probably going to lose that batch, lose that race every time. File include vulnerabilities, remote or local, are the most popular way of verifying and trying to gain access to the web servers today. So if I have to rank the types of priority that you should be giving to vulnerability scanning and web application scanning, then file include vulnerability should probably be at the highest part of your list. So with that, I think I'm either just on time, over time, or whatever, but I'm open to any questions perhaps.